Back to Miller. Oh my goodness.
Herbert.
Sidearm sling, and it's a touchdown.
Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, good spin move back for Rapowski for the news. Give him 9.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pick Swap Media. Back for season what now? 4, Joe, I believe?
It's our 4th season doing this.
Season 4 of the weekly college football show, where this is my first episode in a while that I've had another person to talk to, so that's nice. Because I've just been ripping through previews left and right, both on college and the pro, and now it feels good to finally have some games to get to and finally break down. But for those of you who are new to the show, we will be doing the top 5 games every week in college football, breaking it down, the game, who's going to win, the over-under, the total, and the spread. So each and every week. But this week, week 0, there's 7 games, so we're just going to hit on all 7 of those. But this is my co-host, Joseph Kmetz, a.k.a. Joey Jets. He'll be back with us every single week, and we'll be breaking down, like I said, the top 5 games on the calendar for that week. And besides for this week, week 0, we'll be hitting on all 7. So exciting time. Finally got some football back. Games start up on Saturday with Notre Dame and Navy, but excited for another year ahead, Joseph, and welcome back. And how are we?
Coyle, thank you as always for having me on. Like you said, our 4th season together, which is crazy. I'm excited to be back on. Last year, I used the analogy of like, this is the appetizer. I'm filling up on all the bread. This year, I'm going to compare it to like we were lost in the forest and we're coming out. Week 0 is the light that we can see at the end of the tunnel, at the end of the path. And then once we get through that, then week 1, the full slate's here. I can't wait. Notre Dame, I get to see them kicking off week 0, kicking off the college football season from Ireland. Can't wait. I think this is going to be a great season. The last season, things we've kind of grew up on, like from when, we kind of started watching college football, we're having a lot of things shifting starting next year. Not to go into realignment too much, but Texas, Oklahoma going to the SEC. The Big 10 is going to become the Big 18 with, 4 Pac-12 schools going there, 4 Pac-12 schools going to the Big 12. There's a lot of things that are going to be changing next season. This is also last year, the 4-team playoff. A lot of things changing, a lot of exciting stuff. I think it's going to be a great season, and I can't wait.
Yeah, and this season, can't really get off to much worse of a start than it ended last year with the drubbing in the national championship. That was our last time, and I believe I actually picked TCU to win that night. So that was probably our coldest take of the season after that. I think it was like a 65-7 drubbing to Georgia. But we have a full slate to dive into. But before we dive into it, Joe, just some big picture thoughts. Give me your 4 playoff teams and then who's eventually going to be in the national title game and your national champion real quick.
So I've been kind of going back and forth on this. I would say right now I'm picking Georgia. I think Penn State's going to win the Big 10. I'm really high on Penn State this year. I think Texas is going to finally be back.
Wow.
They're last year in the Big 12, so they kind of have to do it now before they have to go in the SEC. And I'm right now going to say USC, but I am up in the air between them and Washington coming out of the Pac-12. I think the ACC is going to kind of eat itself alive a little bit. Florida State having a tough non-conference game with LSU, which we'll talk about, next week for the week 1 preview. Clemson having to play Florida State, having to, North Carolina on the schedule, Miami on the schedule.
Notre Dame,
yes, my Irish. I just don't know if they're going to make it out with 1 loss. I could see them going 11-2, but as we've seen, in the history of the 4-team playoff, there's never been a 2-loss team that's made it. That could change this year, but as of right now, those would be my 4 picks. I would have Georgia versus Texas in the national title game, and I think Texas upsets Georgia in the national title game just because I don't know, I just can't see a team winning 3 straight national titles. The last time that's happened, I think the only time it's ever happened, I believe I looked it up, it was Minnesota back in the 30s won 3 straight national titles. But so that's the first time I've actually said out loud, I think Texas is going to win the national title this year.
Yeah, my top 4 for this year, I'm going to go with Michigan. I'm going to go with Florida State. I think that they're in for an explosion this season. And then I'm going to go 2 SEC teams, neither being Georgia, though. I'm going to go Alabama and LSU. I think LSU kind of has the perfect slate through the whole season, but they lose that game to Alabama, so they kind of are like Ohio State was last year. They sneak in without going to the conference title game. Alabama wins the SEC this year. I think Florida State will beat LSU will beat Florida State in that week 1 game, but then I think Florida State runs the table from there and wins the ACC. And then I'm going to have Michigan beating Alabama in the national title game this year. I think Michigan on paper is the best team, and they have the most experience at quarterback. When you just look at the top 4 quarterbacks in the country, or top 4 teams in the country this year to start off the season, Georgia has a new starting quarterback in Carson Beck. Then you go to Michigan, J.J. McCarthy. He's going into his 3rd year playing meaningful snaps for Michigan, so he has by far the most experience. Ohio State and Alabama, neither of those guys have named their starting quarterback yet. So I think the experience on Michigan, as well as the running game and the great offensive line that they have, I think they're set up for a national title this year. And finally, for the first time since 1997 to get that. So I think this year we'll see a little bit more parity, kind of hoping that Georgia doesn't go for the 3-peat. But as you said, that would be pretty historic to see because it hasn't happened in the modern era. But I think it hasn't happened for a reason, just because it's so hard to sustain that success. Even with all the great years that Alabama had, they never found a way to 3 straight. So that's kind of just some big picture thoughts before we head into week 0. Not the best slate on our hands, but we still have football to break down. But this is the game that I've been really looking forward to, and I'm sure you have, Joe, the entire season, the kickoff game. We have Navy versus Notre Dame. Navy in our Lindy's College Football Preview magazine that I've kind of been doing all my research on. They come in ranked at 118th in the country out of 133 teams. And they'll be playing Notre Dame, who's ranked number 13 in the AP poll. This game's over in Dublin, Ireland, so a cool way also to start off the season. 2:30 Eastern time kickoff on NBC. Notre Dame is a 20.5-point favorite, and the over-under is 50. So, Joseph, give us your winner, the spread, as well as the over-under.
Coyle, we are back. I cannot believe it's already been a year since we were driving up to Fenway Park, watching Northwestern Nebraska on that was Pat Fitzgerald's last ever win in college football as a head coach. It's already been a year since that happened. That's insane to me. But I'm going Notre Dame 45-21, shifting the focus to this season. The entire season for Notre Dame is going to hinge on Sam Hartman. I truly think Notre Dame has the ceiling of a playoff team. 12-0, 11-1 is a real possibility. I think 10-2 is going to be the record this year. But if things don't pan out with Sam Hartman, I'm not even talking injuries. I'm just talking, things. We see transfers go places. Like I thought JT Daniels last year was going to light it up at West Virginia. He ended up getting benched. He sucked. Sam Hartman could, just end up not having a great season. I think there's a floor of 7-5 for Notre Dame. I have the talent, but it is there, and especially I think Marcus Freeman's going to take a big step forward. But we kind of saw last season, the home loss to Marshall, the home loss to Stanford, who was just abysmal last year. He has those losses in his past. But when you have a massive upgrade at the QB position with a lot of the starters returning for Notre Dame, it should lead to success. Navy getting a new coach. And since the COVID hit, they went 3-7 in the COVID year, 4-8, 4-8. So this is a program that is in need of some rejuvenation, especially when you consider in 2019 they were 11-2 and they were co-champs with Memphis, who ended up going to the Cotton Bowl that year. However, the triple option, you can't sit back, take it easy for Notre Dame. I can see this game being kind of close to the half. Notre Dame opens it up in the second half. So I'll take Notre Dame 45-21, cover that 20.5-point spread, and I'll take the over of 50.
Yeah, this isn't the greatest game on paper, but just like viewing wise, I feel like this one is going to get the most eyeballs, not just because it's the first game of the college football season, but it's Notre Dame and Navy, like still historically 2 big brands on NBC. Everyone's going to have access to this one. The game, though, that just we've been waiting for just the entire offseason and since that drubbing of TCU by Georgia. So going to be cool to see them take the field in Ireland. And this one, Joe, this is going to get the juices flowing. This is going to be like, all right, I'm cracking a Miller Lite and we're here. We're ready. It's football season. We're back. And I'm with you where I'm kind of higher on Notre Dame this year than the consensus. I have a preview dropping on them. I'm not sure if it'll drop before or after this episode, but I think Sam Hartman combined with Marcus Freeman in year 2, and they have 15 out of 22 starters returning from last year. This team does have double-digit win potential. Really optimistic about the offense led by Hartman, as this will be the most talented team that he's played on, and he's always seemed to elevate the play of those around him just because he was at Wake Forest. You never really are dealing with high-level elite players at Wake Forest. This Notre Dame team doesn't have the greatest pass catchers, but just the offensive line, the running game, everything around him is going to be better and just going to make things easier for him. And then Navy, you throw in ushering in a new head coach, and as you were saying, Joe, the option being difficult to prepare for. It's going to be kind of a bit of a mystery, I think, in the first half, but I think it's going to be a rough year for Navy, and a week 1 opponent like Notre Dame isn't really the cupcake that you would like to go out there. It's not like they have an FCS opponent where, all right, the new head coach along with the triple option, we can all kind of get used to this new era of Navy football that they're trying to bring in. But they have Notre Dame, who I think is by the end of the year going to be a top 6 or 7 team in the country. So I do have Notre Dame winning this one and winning pretty easily. I have them coming out and setting the tone on what I think is going to be a strong season for them. I'll go Notre Dame 41, Navy 17. So we'll take Notre Dame minus the 20.5 and the over 50 there. So we're on the same 3 plays in our opening game there. We go to our second game of the week. Probably the only time these two teams will be on the show all season unless they make the conference title game. But that's Utep, who comes in at 111th in the Lindy's magazine, at Jacksonville State, who's 129th in the Lindy's magazine. So the 4th worst team in college football this year in the FBS for their projections. But 5:30 kickoff on CBS Sports Network. Utep -1 in this one. Over under is 52.5. Thoughts on your Miners, Joe?
I have them actually written down here as your Miners. There are Miners. I actually think Jacksonville State's going to win this game 28-24. So I'm taking them plus the point right now. I'm going to go under by the hook. I already don't like that. I did that way too much last year in our predictions, but here I am again. The Conference USA is going to kick so much ass this year. There's so many teams that are like very like sub 100 in the rankings for the preseason that are in this conference. Conference realignment ripped this conference apart. There's only 9 members this year. 2 of them are Sam Houston and Jacksonville State, who's playing this game here. So there's only 7 members eligible for the conference title game this year. So you could have a team potentially finish 4th place, and if Sam Houston and Jacksonville State somehow finish ahead of them, they're going to go to the conference title game. Jacksonville State, getting to host their first ever FBS game, having it be a conference game, having it be on TV. Rich Rod's opener as coach, as he's bringing them up to the FBS level. I think it's going to be a massive crowd. I think the fans are going to be crazy. I think it's going to be a great environment, and I think that's kind of the reason why Jacksonville State's going to pull us out. I don't know how much success they're going to have ultimately this year, but I could see them pulling out a win at home to open up the season. Tough for UTEP to have to start the season on the road in conference.
I'll go with UTEP here. So our first disagreement of the season. I'll take your Miners 24-17. So UTEP -1 in the under of 52.5 there. Not expecting that much of this matchup. Like I was saying, probably the only time we'll be talking about or watching either of these squads for most of the season. But I'll take the Miners here as the favorite, not really knowing a ton about either team. Jacksonville State's, as you were touching on, Joe, first game after transitioning from FCS to FBS, and Rich Rod has shown to have a really good track record on the offensive side of the ball during his coaching career. So wouldn't surprise me to see them be players in the CUSA like sooner rather than later once they start to get more FBS level talent on the squad. But just a team that's in the midst of a transition, playing a UTEP team that over the past few years has been kind of a right there flirting with bowl eligibility. I just expect them to have a little bit more talent and just more experience on their side in this one. The word out of UTEP is to expect a really good running game. They have a really strong backfield duo and arguably the best offensive line in the CUSA from what I've read and from what I've listened to this offseason. So let's take UTEP in a bit of a lower scoring game where they're going to limit the possessions for Jacksonville State with their running game. They find a way to go on the road and get a win here. So UTEP -1 and the under 52.5 is my play for that game. Third game of the week. I call this one the throw-up matchup. Just looking at it, you kind of just want to throw up, but you're going to be watching it anyway. UMass, 132nd ranked out of 133 teams at New Mexico State, who's 116th. 7 o'clock kick on ESPN. New Mexico State is an 8-point favorite. I have to imagine this is the largest favorite that they'll be the entire season. And over under in this one is 44.5. Joe, your Minutemen or the Aggies in this one?
This is the beautiful game, Coyle. I love this. And I also love that this is the game that's going to be on ESPN in prime time, whereas we're going to talk about a game in a little bit that's on the Pac-12 network. And there's going to probably be more people that watch this game than that game. I'm going to take New Mexico State here with an ugly score, 24-6. New Mexico State returns Diego Pavia, I believe I'm saying the last name right, at QB, who became the first player in school history to receive a Heisman vote. Yes, that's a real stat. He received one Heisman vote. He's Phil Steele's first team preseason Conference USA QB. I actually think the Aggies could be sneaky in play for the conference title this year because, like I said, only 7 teams are eligible for it. If you're telling me they got to be in the top 2 out of 7, I think the Aggies can really swing that. But UMass stinks, and I have the ASS capitalized. Since moving up to the FBS in 2012, they are 21-115. That's a .154 winning percentage. So they've only won 15.4% of their games. 4 of those were against FCS opponents. And their last win against an FBS team not named UConn or Akron was in 2018. I believe it was against Liberty, who was in their first year of transitioning to an FBS opponent. So that was our freshman year, Coyle. Beef up front wasn't even a thought in our minds yet. So that's the last time UMass had a FBS win against one of those two, not one of those two schools. Give me New Mexico State here. Under is the play of 44.5, and I'll take the Aggies -8.
I'll go with New Mexico State in this one too. I'll take them a little bit closer than you, though. I'm going to go 23-20, so UMass finds a way to cover that 8 and under 44.5. I love that the Diego Pavia stat. That's a pretty funny one. But as I said, this is the throw-up game of the week. You just want to throw up looking at it, thinking about it. But the game that we'll be tuned in for, especially if you start drinking for the 2:30 Notre Dame Navy game, you're going to be all tuned up by this one. And you're going to be convinced that New Mexico State and Diego Pavia are going to be running whatever conference they're in this year. But out of the 133 teams in the FBS, your Minutemen are projected to be the second worst team in the nation this year. Pretty exciting stuff, if you ask me. New Mexico State, not supposed to be much better, but this is a good chance for them to get off to a 1-0 start. Not much to talk about. I think it's going to be a sloppy game, but we'll take the Aggies to win. But we'll go with UMass to cover in a lower scoring affair between 2 pretty sloppy teams. So UMass +8, under 44.5, but New Mexico State with the outright win. All right, we go to, I think this is actually going to be the best game of the day. Not the highest profile, as we still have USC to talk about. We already talked about Notre Dame and Navy, but just straight up football, I think this has the chance to be the best game of the day. And it's Ohio, who's 95th in the Lindy's magazine, at San Diego State, who is 75th in the Lindy's magazine. 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff on FS1. San Diego State -3, over under is 49. What are your thoughts on this game, Joe?
I have San Diego State winning this game 25-21. So I'll take the Aztecs -3, and I will take them under in this game. Hard-nosed defense is kind of what has become expected of the Aztecs since Brady Hoke came back. When they can control the tempo, they tend to win their games. And Brady Hoke isn't exactly a slouch of a coach either. He's kind of been all over the place. Since returning to San Diego State in 2020, he's gone 23-12. He's gotten a division title at that point. And the 2021 season, his team finished 25th in the AP poll. So, he's coached some pretty good teams. He was at Michigan for a while. He was back at Ball State. I believe Ball State was undefeated going into their conference title game. They were almost in a BCS bowl game way back in the day. But the Aztecs have a massive opportunity here to kind of move the needle for conferences. They were a big talk all offseason about potentially realigning to a new conference. At one point, they were actually out of the Mountain West for about a couple of days until the Mountain West ended up saying that they could stay in the conference. They can definitely make a good impression here, winning a game on national TV at home to open up the season when you're going to have a lot of eyeballs. There's going to probably be more people watching this game than its competitor on ESPN that we just talked about in Mexico State UMass. So give me the Aztecs here 25-21. I think they're going to be able to kind of make a statement, or as much of a statement as you can make, playing Ohio in week 0.
Yeah, let's go with a little outright upset here. Let's go with the dog of the day. I'm taking the Ohio Bobcats in this one, outright on the road, 27-21. So we'll go Ohio +3 and the under of 49, just hitting there. San Diego State getting the home 3-point favorite here. It's essentially saying these teams are kind of even. So Ohio has the second best odds to win the MAC this year at +280. San Diego State has the fourth best odds to win the Mountain West at +700. So to give a wider perspective on what these teams' seasons could potentially look like, Ohio has a good chance to be the champion out of the MAC this year, they're saying. So I think that this team's going to be better. And they're just announced today their quarterback, Curtis Rourke, who tore his ACL last year in November, still ended up winning the MAC Conference Offensive Player of the Year. He's going to be back, and he's going to be starting in this game. So that's a big news for an Ohio team. He might be shaking off some rust. And as you were talking about, Joe, San Diego State has been known for their defense. So it could be a bit of an adjustment for him. But I'm going to roll with Ohio in this one. Should be two Group of Five teams, though, vying for respective spots in their conference title game. So that's why I think this could be, on paper, the best game of the weekend. Was looking at the weather. I thought maybe it would be like super hot and like a 95-degree day, maybe lean towards San Diego State just for being home and practicing that. But it looks like it's going to be like a perfect day out in San Diego, 79 degrees. Weather shouldn't be much of a factor. So I think it's just going to be best on best in this one. And I don't really see much of a home field advantage here for San Diego State. So I'll roll with Ohio. Let's get it started with a action winner and hit our first underdog dog of the day of the year. So give me the Bobcats there as my underdog pick, +3, under 49, but Ohio straight up outright winner as well. All right, we go to 114th ranked according to Lindy's, your Hawaii Rainbow Warriors at Vandy, who comes in at 59th. 7:30 kick on the SEC network. Vandy is an 18-point favorite, over under 56, and just kind of like New Mexico State, probably the largest favorite that Vandy will be the entire season.
Oh, for sure. I'm going to take Vandy here, 42-17. So I'll take them minus the 18. I'll also take the over at 56. This is a pure sicko game. Vandy Stadium is still under construction. I believe their north end zone is still literally an active construction zone. Like they have a fence, not even like one of the nice fences. Like they have like a little like chain wire fence blocking off right after the end zone out of bounds and the construction site. It's awesome. I've seen pictures on Twitter. It's going to be a complete, like the epitome of like a week 0 game. They're going to flash when they're kicking extra points. You're going to see bulldozers going around in the background. It's going to be awesome. But the SEC talent here, I think, is going to be the big separator. Hawaii having to go from the Big Island all the way out to Nashville. I mean, that's not going to help them at all. And I think Hawaii is going to be a little bit better than they were last year. I just don't think it's going to make a difference here. I'll take the commies big.
I think Hawaii should realign to the ACC.
Yes.
Just makes a lot of sense travel-wise. All right, I'll go with Vandy as well here, 35-16, so kind of close to you. So minus 18, but I'll take the under of 56. This is a rematch of last year's Week 0 matchup where Vandy absolutely dominated 63-10. And now the Commodores get the Rainbow Warriors at home. As you were saying, Joe, not the greatest home field advantage down there in Nashville, but I'm not expecting the same level of domination here as we saw a year ago. But the progress Vandy has been showing under their coach, Clark Leah, I believe is how you say his name, they should be able to cover this number and beat this Hawaii team. Timmy Chang at Hawaii enters year 2 in his attempt to kind of resurrect the Hawaii program from back in the day. That was an exciting late-night offense. And after a 3-10 year, for year 1, there's some optimism for some progress, maybe get to 4 or 5 wins, potentially flirt with a bowl game this year. But there's more optimism for a Vandy team that's coming off a 5-7 record. That's great for Vanderbilt. And that included wins over Florida and Kentucky. So those were 2 programs that were both ranked at one point last year. The arrow's pointing up in Vanderbilt, and we can hopefully see that kind of continue to climb, because it's fun to not really have a laughing stock team and just make each and every game more competitive. And now that you're getting Texas and Oklahoma in there, 2 more big dogs, it's going to be tougher. I hope Vanderbilt's still able to climb, and I feel like a loss here to Hawaii would really derail any progress that they've been making. So I think they come out of this one strong. There's real bowl expectations this year for Vanderbilt, and inside that locker room, I think they come out in this one, get rolling, get started on the right foot, and win pretty comfortably. I'll take a -18 here, but the under of 56 hitting. Okay, second to last game on the schedule for the Week 0 slate. We have San Jose State, ranked 94th according to Lindy's, will be traveling to USC to play number 6 USC, the Trojans. 8 o'clock kickoff on the Pac-12 network. USC -30, over-under 64.5. You got the reigning Heisman winner, arguably one of the most exciting offenses in college football this year, and you're going to put them on the Pac-12 network, which nobody has, and they're number 6 ranked team in the country. Don't understand it, but talk to me, Joe. What are your thoughts on this game?
The Pac-12 network starting next year when the Pac-12 doesn't exist should just sign a deal with Hawaii. Hawaii should just get to play all their games because then, if no one not that many people watch Hawaii anyways, let them, like you said, go to the ACC. We can get Boston College, Hawaii on the Pac-12 network at 11:59 Eastern time. That would be awesome because putting USC on the Pac-12 network when Fox has media rights to Pac-12 is crazy. I feel like you could have put this as the 8 o'clock Fox game, and this would have been the most watched game of the week. But that being said, obviously, I can argue about where they put games on TV for hours. I'm going to take USC here 52-24. So I'll take San Jose State plus the 30, and I'll take the over 64.5. It'll be interesting to see how this game plays out with the hurricane kind of going through Southern California right now and all the subsequent flooding. Because at the moment, I'm not too sure if practices have been moved or canceled, if players or coaches have had to evacuate due to the flooding. Obviously, everyone's safety is the top priority. Football takes a back seat. It'll be interesting to see if that has any effects on the Trojans. But that being said, it's Caleb Williams come back to defend his Heisman. The Trojans have playoff title aspirations. I think 30 is just a bit too much points to cover, especially with the circumstances. So I'll take the Spartans to cover. But I am excited to see Caleb Williams in his first game back if we can find any highlights of any sort. So.
I think this game too, Joe, is going to be closer than this 30-point spread indicates. That's a pretty big number. And because USC is ushering in a lot of new faces on defense from a defense that wasn't good at all last year. That was really the reason why they didn't win the Pac-12 and get to the playoff. And now they have a bunch of new faces. It's going to take an adjustment period. They're probably going to have 7 to 8 guys on this defense playing meaningful snaps for them in Week 0 that weren't there last year. And then San Jose State is kind of being talked about as the sleeper team in the Mountain West this year with potentially the best offense in the entire conference. So I think they could strike some fear into USC in like the first quarter, maybe in the first quarter and a half. But I do eventually think USC will pull away in this one. Caleb Williams, though, without his top wideout last year in Jordan Addison and his running back in Travis Dye. So USC is going to be making some adjustments early on in the offense as well. So this game, I think, Joe, could be kind of interesting heading into the half. I do think USC will still be up pretty comfortably, double digits, 10 to 14 points heading into the half. But still, maybe some eyebrows get raised and we see some kind of adjustment periods by USC. San Jose State has proven over the past couple of years, though, to be a well-coached, tough team, and they're going to be in the mix most likely for the Mountain West Conference title. So being able to compete with USC should be a huge boost to their confidence if they're able to keep this game at like a 14 to 17-point margin and kind of hang in there if USC pulls away late. But San Jose State last year, Joe, did not lose a game by 30 or more all of last season, and USC only won one of their games last year by 30 or more. And I think that was their Week 1 game against Rice. So I think the Trojans find a way to win this one, but the Spartans cover. I'll go USC 45, San Jose State 23. So San Jose State plus 30 and the over of 64.5 hitting there. All right, last matchup of Week 0. Another set of teams that most likely we will not be talking about the rest of the season, but it's football. It's back. Time to get excited. Florida International coming in at 127th at La Tech, 107th. 9 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. La Tech minus 10.5, over under 59. And Joe, just before we get into that, I think it's kind of a good marketing move, I guess, because the CUSA is going to have some featured teams this weekend and probably the most eyeballs all season. Might as well try and throw as many teams in the Week 0 slate as you can.
Oh, they're really smart for doing this. Kind of like how the MAC, when they get in a conference play, they play a lot of their games during the week. The CUSA is actually adopting that this year too. I believe they're going to be playing more of their weekday games in October, so they don't have to compete with the MAC in like late October and November, because the more eyeballs they can get for their guys, the better. It actually helps with recruiting, and the fact that you get a game, it's on CBS Sports Network, but still, a lot of people have that. It's going to be on cable TV. You're going to be at the bar, and the bartenders are going to put the game on for you. Well, not at Beer Boys. They'll probably have, Wolf of Wall Street playing for all the fellas for the 30th weekend in a row. But I'm going to go with
Not our
Louisiana.
problem anymore.
Yeah, that's not our problem. We don't have to worry about that. But I'm going to go Louisiana Tech here, 34-21. So I'll take Tech here minus the 10.5. I'm going to take I wrote the over here. That is under 59. FIU is not a very good football team. Having to go up to Ruston to start off the season isn't great either. Louisiana Tech's a team that I think is going to be in contention for the conference this year. And I'm not going to harp, Coyle. You put a lot on the quarterback transfer from Boise State, Hank Bachmeier, coming in here for Louisiana Tech. He's a former 4-star who went 20-9 for the Broncos. He's played against some pretty big-time competition. I don't see him having any issues with this FIU defense. The one positive I will say, the one bright spot for FIU is that they are 18th in the nation in terms of returning production from last season. Might not be saying a whole lot because they were 4-8 last year and they needed overtime to beat Bryan at home, but they are returning a lot of guys from last year. You never know, especially with a conference that's going to be this unpredictable. You could be seeing a 6-6 FIU team or even a 5-7 team, because 5-7 teams make it to bowl games now. So you could see FIU potentially in a bowl game at the end of the season.
Hey, if FIU makes it to a bowl game and they're beginning the season at 127th ranked according to Lindy's, that'd be a really successful season, I think. I have a pretty similar score to you. I'm going to go La Tech 33, FIU 20 in this one. So we'll take the Bulldogs minus 10.5 and under 59. I'm keeping an eye on this Louisiana Tech team as a sleeper in the CUSA. As we've kind of touched on, a really depleted conference now, and this team actually has a decent amount of talent. Let's see if they can put it all together, though. Bachmeier, quarterback, he's probably going to be the best quarterback in Conference USA this year, I think. Transfer from Boise State, as you were touching on, he's got a 41-19 touchdown to interception ratio and is thrown for over 6,000 yards. So I think he's a dark horse for the conference player of the year. And he's taken a step down in competition going from the Mountain West to CUSA. It's going to be a little bit easier for him, I think, this year. FIU finished last year on a 4-game losing streak, and I don't think they have really the necessary momentum to make me feel comfortable enough for them to cover in this opening game. And I think Louisiana Tech is a much more talented team. I think Bachmeier is going to go out there and make a splash, and the Bulldogs are going to cover to start the season off. So that'll wrap it up for our Bulldog and Panther talk, most likely for all of 2023, at least those Bulldogs and Panthers. We'll now get into our Dog of the Day segment. Typically, we do this straight up money line, but because we usually can pick from over 100 games or whatever it usually is, just for week 0's sake with only 7 games, we'll do our Dog of the Day as just a point spread. So, Joe, who do you have covering this week or like the best as your underdog pick?
So I'm ultimately going to take San Jose State plus the 30 here. I'm kind of going to use the cop-out of week 0 for the point spread. If I had to pick a money line dog, it would be Jacksonville State. Not that they would be a big dog at, +1. But I will take for my official pick here, San Jose State plus the 30. Kind of like I already said, I don't know what's been going on all week down there with the hurricane hitting, what's going to happen leading up to the game. And like you said, San Jose State's always been a quality coach team. In 2020, they ended the season in the top 25 in the college football playoff poll and all the major polls. They had a great season. San Jose State's always been a solid team out in the Mountain West. I don't think they're going to get embarrassed by 30. And also, it's kind of good for them. They're playing USC on the road, and then next week for week 1 on Sunday at 3:30 on CBS, they host Oregon State. So shout out the Spartans.
All right, my Dog of the Day for week 0, I'll go with Ohio plus the 3. I touched on earlier, I have them shaking things up a little bit with an outright upset win and what I think is going to be the best game of the day. Was thinking about San Jose State here as well, but the problem I think with playing USC is if you go a drive or 2 without scoring, there's a good chance USC is likely going out there and scoring. Things could get ugly and pull away from you quickly. And as I was talking about with San Jose State, I think it could be like a 10-point game heading into the half, and you're like, oh, nice, we're going to coast. But then you could go your first 2 drives without scoring. Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley make some halftime adjustments. Next thing you know, it's a 40-point game. So A little bit weary about taking the San Jose State spread there, so I'll go with Ohio plus the 3 as my dog of the day for week 1, or excuse me, for week 0. And then our last segment, the lock of the week, the bet that we're most confident in making this week. So usually we're on the opposite end of this just because of our great gambling skills. I'll go first on this one. My lock of the week, I'm going to go with the over in that USC San Jose State game. That's 64.5. USC in their 14 games last year, they went over this total 11 times. San Jose State only went over this number in 4 of their 13 games, but USC should be able to put up points on just about everyone this entire season. I don't think they'll have much problems doing it against San Jose State. And San Jose State, if they're going to want to stay in this game and find a way to cover that 30-point spread, they're going to have to try and match USC score for score. That's how we know they like to play. So give me Caleb Williams starting off his Heisman campaign with a bit of a bang. San Jose State's offense, that's just really hard to say. San Jose State's offense is expected to be amongst the best in the Mountain West as well. So we'll see a pretty good test for them in this one, see if they can go score for score with USC. But I like the over in that one at 64.5.
Coyle, I do love that pick. I was honestly between that and my pick of the week, my lock of the week. New Mexico State, UMass under 44.5. I believe last year when New Mexico State played on week 0 against Nevada, I believe it was like 22-10 the final. Just ugly, ugly football. New Mexico State isn't really the problem here with the points. I just don't see how UMass is going to be able to score a lot. So naturally, it'll be like a 52-50 game. But I'm going to take the under 44.5 as my lock of the week for week 0 in the New Mexico State UMass primetime ESPN game.
All right. Well, one show under our belt, week 0 done. Already got our slate lined up for next week for week 1. We'll be covering some much more exciting games. Florida at Utah, Boise State at Washington, UNC versus South Carolina, LSU versus Florida State, and Clemson at Duke. So still not the cream of the crop, but still a lot better than week 0 slate, but just excited to have some official games to talk about. We can kind of recap some of what happened in week 0 next week on week 1 show. But any last second comments, Joe, before we head out?
I mean, Coyle, you hit it on the head. Feels good to have a showdown. Next week we'll be getting into some much more exciting games, but feels good. We're going to have football. We're going to have meaningful football. We're going to have games that matter on our TVs this weekend. Life is good.
All right, well, that'll do it for the first episode of the 2023 season for the Beef Upfront College Football Show. As always, please like, subscribe, and we'll talk next week.